Hello and welcome to my channel. This is my first video in a while and I am excited to be getting back to it. For anyone who doesn't know, I will be talking about a topic in warrior cats today. I worked really hard on it and I really hope you enjoy. Introduction. We all know Omen of the Stars, the climactic fight between good and evil, the tragic deaths they faced, and the cats who made it happen. But who were these cats, and what got them to the end? Was it heroic destiny, or a twisted belief that the individual does not matter? Today I will be examining Dovewing, Ivypool, and the culture preceding the Great Battle. Warning that I will be talking about uncomfortable topics, so if you need to leave, I completely understand. I don't talk about it much, but it is there. There will also be spoilers for OOTS and previous arcs, as well as very minor spoilers for the far future. Background. Dovewing and Ivypool were born in the book Sunrise to Whitewing and Birchfall. Little did they know the prophecy that loomed over their heads. After Hollyleaf's disappearance and exclusion from the prophecy, her brothers realized that one of these two kids would be the third cat, as they were both kin of Firestar's kin. Now, the fandom is very divided in their opinion of the two sisters. Often, since the two are usually compared to or placed in opposition to the other, people get the idea in their heads that they can only like one and the other is whiny. I really do not know why people are so attached to this label. But anyway, fans usually like one or the other. Personally, I love Ivypool. She's my absolute favorite, and I, like many fans, was rooting for her to be made deputy. But that doesn't mean I hate Dovewing. While I do dislike her, it's not because of her relationship with her sister, but her naivete, which has always turned me off to characters. I mean, Tigerheart? Seriously? We have proof that he used and manipulated you, and you still got together in the end? Dovewing's powers. First off, let's talk about how Dovepaw/Dovewing's powers were treated. In her first appearances, it is shown that she does not realize she was different from the other cats in the census department, and it was surprising when she learned of this. She is often using them, or at least implied to do so, though this is sparsely shown. However, the problem comes not in how she uses her powers, but in her relations with other characters. All the other cats connected to the prophecy tend to ignore her opinions and use her as a tool for spying. Even the cats who are supposed to be responsible for her are distant or part of the prophecy clique. Her mentor, Lionblaze, seems to be unable to disagree with his brother and protect her from the stress of the prophecy. Jayfeather, the medicine cat, devalues her opinions and focuses on the prophecy when he's actually supposed to care about her health. And you can't argue that Jayfeather is a grumpy jerk because in actuality, he's written as a very compassionate cat. But even he seems to have his paws tied as StarClan constantly forces him to do stuff against the interests of both himself and his clan. But what really makes no sense to me is Firestar. He is written as a hero who always does what he thinks is right for his clan, even if it means disobeying his leader or the warrior code. Additionally, while he is able to communicate with StarClan, it's to a much lesser extent than Jayfeather. Besides, we have no evidence that he was really talking to StarClan throughout OOTS until the last hope. So why the heck is the clan leader, who is supposed to be a caring cat, seemingly ignoring and belittling the opinions of an apprentice he's supposed to protect when he hasn't been in contact with his ancestors for the last 2 arcs or so? It just makes no sense to what we have seen so far. Okay, Firestar rant over. Now, the last cats you can mention are Dovewing's parents, Whitewing and Birchfall. And to that I say, warrior cats do not have parents. Okay, technically they have parents, but after they leave the nursery, they basically do not talk to their parents at all. Not to mention Toms, besides Fernsong, Freshfelt, and a few others, seem to be allergic to the nursery, and they have no reason to be, so it ends up just being Mom. So all the cats in Dovewing's life who are supposed to be responsible and caring for her end up doing the opposite. In fact, you could argue that her superpowers are a kind of disability, at least in the way people and society treat her. In real life, often the hardest part of having a physical or mental condition is not the way it affects your actions directly, but more so how you are treated because of it. Speaking from my own experiences with several mental conditions, I've struggled with school since 7th grade because of the way our education system is structured. It's not that I am not good at learning or getting stuff done, but more so the pressure and lack of support I experienced. While my current school is much better than my 7th grade one, which I had to go to therapy afterwards, I still struggle with the way things are treated. Structured. I would also like to make clear that I only have experience with mental conditions and not any physical ones. Also, I am only one person and my experiences could differ greatly from another person with the same exact conditions. I encourage you to do research before you make any final opinions, and remember that just because someone has a condition doesn't make them any less capable. Sorry about the tangent. Okay, back on track. Dovewing struggles throughout the whole arc, with others trying to take control of her life, especially when it comes to her powers. She is used as a spy, her mental health is often ignored or devalued, and the cats who are supposed to take care of her do nothing to combat this or only make it worse. This is never resolved or even addressed. That is not okay, and much of the fan base calls her whiny. Dovewing's relationships. But it's not just her powers that have worsened Dovewing's life, but the cats around her. While the two eventually make up, for much of the arc, Dovewing and Ivypool have a tense and sometimes even hostile relationship, exacerbated by the Dark Forest situation. This came about when Lionblaze and Jayfeather learned of Dovepaw's powers and began pulling her away to talk to her. Firestar soon joined in as well, and as Dovepaw was not allowed to tell her sister what was up, Ivypaw saw it as special treatment and they began to grow distant. But it really soured when the Dark Forest cats began to manipulate Ivypaw, convincing her to train with them. When she returns from her first training session, she initially decides to tell Dovepaw, but then changes her mind, happy now that she has her own secret to keep. When Dovepaw eventually learns of her sister's nighttime training, she confronts her sister. Ivypaw is unapologetic and sure that the Dark Forest cats regret their actions. They continue to have a strained relationship when Ivypaw is asked to spy by Lionblaze and Jayfeather. For everyone watching, I just want to make it clear that asking, more like demanding, a teenager to spy in literal, actual hell is not okay. Sure, she may have been unable to get out, but we don't know that. Both Brambleclaw and Lionblaze were able to stop training when they chose to. And maybe now, in Omen of the Stars, Dark Forest cats may be able to materialize in the living world and attack cats. But what evidence do we have that they can also maintain the connection to the cats training there, even when they no longer want to be there? Not to mention that one of the cats telling Ivypaw to spy was a Dark Forest trainee who broke away from it only about a year prior. Now, this may be because it's Omen of the Stars and the authors don't really keep notes of what they have written in the past, so it is based on memory. And no one has a perfect memory, even if you have a photographic memory. I'm sure things will slip through the cracks because no one can remember everything that ever happened. It's just really uncool that they, didn't address this. Okay, back to Dovewing's relationships. Dovepaw/Dovewing is constantly concerned about her sister as she spies in the Dark Forest but feels powerless to help. They make up, albeit off-screen, after Omen of the Stars, and both live to the present day of books. So Dovewing has a strained relationship with her sister, but what about other people in her life? The next obvious choice is to talk about are her parents, but they don't appear much for Dovewing. Her father, Birchfall, is much more relevant in Ivypool's chapters late in the arc, and Whitewing mainly appears when she's fretting over her daughters. Dovewing does spend time with the other two prophecy cats, but it's mostly business, and the other two seem to care little of how she feels. I would chalk this up to the age gap and the fact that two are still missing and thinking about their sister Hollyleaf. But the most egregious of her relationships are definitely her potential love interests. The books only give her two choices in terms of who to pick. The first, Tigerheart, has shown himself to be manipulative and unapologetic when he hurts her feelings, like when he used her to get to ThunderClan's herbs. He does seem to care about her, but he's problematic, and he also started flirting with her when she was a young apprentice while he was a full-grown warrior and about a year older. This is uncomfortable, and if you are a teenager or child and an adult expresses romantic interest in you, get out of there and tell someone you trust. Her second potential love interest is Bumblestripe. Unlike with Tigerheart, he doesn't show an interest in her until he was a warrior. Thank goodness. However, he is bad in other ways. He repeatedly has belittled her feelings and gets angry when she seems hesitant about getting together. Worse yet is that every cat around her is encouraging her to date him, and none of them make her feel like she has the option to not. It's frankly irresponsible of the authors to not point out that she has every right to not date him. Both of her options are bad, and she shouldn't have had to get with either of them. If they had to give her a partner, they could pick about any other cat and they would have been fine. Even though at this point a lot of ThunderClan was already related, she still had a few options in her age group. Both Hazeltail and Mousewhisker were unrelated to basically every cat in ThunderClan, and Bumblestripe, who was unrelated to her, had 2 single sisters. I personally would ship her with Briarlight. They're both sweet, caring cats who would mesh well, and I just think they would be cute. They also could have put her in a different half-clan relationship, but a more healthy one. But anyway, Dovewing is given 2 ad options and struggles under relationship drama with no help. If you are uncomfortable, you have a right to talk about it, and no one should force you into something you're not ready for. Advocate for yourself, okay? Ivypool and the Dark Forest. The 2 sisters grew distant early in the arc as multiple forces pushed them apart. Eventually, this strain and jealousy led Ivypaw to the Dark Forest, and she began to train there. After becoming a spy, she did her best to gather info on the Dark Forest, and that cemented her in the hearts of the fan base. Well, that was the intention anyways, but in reality, Ivypool is very ineffective. The Dark Forest doesn't really have a plan, and Ivypool refuses to reveal the identities of the other trainees until the very last minute. If you read closely, the only thing she is actually looking for is when the Dark Forest plans to attack. Even then, she never actually finds out before it starts. While I love her for the role she played, it was handled very sloppily and renders her spying attempts for nothing. Why then is it so crucial that she become a spy and put her life and afterlife on the line if she wasn't going to gather anything consequential? While I would argue the narrative treated her a lot better than it did Dovewing, she still is in a situation that she has little power over. She fell for the Dark Forest trickery, sure, but so did many other cats, and she figured it out much faster than they did. Not to mention that she was recruited young, so of course she's more likely to fall for it. She is a teenager, and so of course she's more vulnerable. Adolescence is an emotional time as you learn a lot very quickly about the world and go through a lot of physical and mental changes. It just really bugs me that she was forced to spy when she was still an apprentice in a dangerous place and with no clear guidance. Not to mention that the 2 cats who forced her to do this were her medicine cat and her sister's mentor. It negatively affects their characters and just doesn't send a good message. Oh, you're training in a cat hole? Well, how about you spy there and risk your life? No, we are not going to help you get out of it. The scene where she was forced to spy always rubbed me the wrong way. It's just not cool. But I do feel she got off a lot better than Dovewing, even though many fans would argue the contrary. She had to deal with risking her life every night, but she also had a lot more freedom and control over her life than her sister did. Also, most of the fan base loves her while hating her sister. Conclusion. So Dovewing and Ivypool were mistreated by the narrative. It grew estranged, had an off-screen resolution, and spent much of the arc terse and at odds. Dovewing suffered under the weight of her powers and her relationships, whilst Ivypool was forced to risk her life at a young age with no choice in the matter. Even if they got to better places eventually, they spent a good amount of their youth in this culture that no one thought to confront. To everyone watching, I hope you enjoyed and learned something from this. But I just want to let you know I didn't do a lot of research. This is more of a rant video, but I have read all the books that contain what I cover. I just want to make it clear that I am a 15-year-old Warrior Cats fan who is not an expert in any of these things. A good portion of my information is just from osmosis or lazy research. Please, if you actually want reliable, trustworthy information, do your own research and read the books. I also want to apologize for anywhere the audio is a little spotty. I am inexperienced at recording audio, and I did practice, but things are going to slip through the cracks. But thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you again soon.